Hello, this is Mrs. Hall. I'm on page 131, so if you don't have your books, please pause this video and grab your book and turn it to page 131. And I'm on number 27. So we have a chart. It gives us an expression. It wants us to show the number of terms, the variable terms, the constant terms, the numerical coefficients, and the variables. So number 27 is already done for you, but I'm going to go through it with you as well. So a term is separated by adding and subtracting. So in this expression, I have adding there, subtracting, and adding. So if I took this, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So in this spot, I'm going to put 4 because it has 4 terms. So my variable term or terms, we have 4 terms possible. We need all the ones with variables. We have 7x, y, 2z, and 11. All 4 terms will be between these two. They either have a variable, so they would go here, or they don't, and it's just a number, so it's called a constant, and it would go here. So 7x has a variable, so I'm going to put that in this spot. Y is a variable. Negative 2z, I'm going to keep this negative sign with my 2z. And 11 does not have any letters behind it, it's just the number. It is called a constant, so it will go in the constant term or terms. Now, based off of this section of your chart, you will use that to complete the numerical coefficients. The numerical coefficient is the number before the letter. So for this term, 7x, the number before the x is a 7. In this part here, I have y. If I did 1 times 2, I get 2. What do you think if I did 1 times y? I would have 1y, but if I have 1y, we don't have to express that 2 is the same thing as 1 times 2. It's just 2. Y is the same thing as 1y, so I can leave it as just y, which makes it an imaginary 1 for the coefficient. So I'm going to plug in a 1 for my y term, has an imaginary 1 in front. And then my z, the number before is a negative 2. Make sure you keep the negative sign if it's subtracting with the coefficient. So it will be a negative 2. And then my variables, there's going to be all the letters through all my terms. I have x, y, and z. Those are the only 3 variables that come across this problem. Alright. Let's look at 8b plus 78. So I have adding right here. Terms are separated by adding and subtracting. So I have 2 terms. 2 terms is called a binomial, don't forget. Binomial. Alrighty, so both of these terms will be somewhere between these 2 columns. 8b. B is a letter, so it's a variable, so that's going to go in my variable terms. The next one is 78. It is just a number, no letter. It's going to go in my constant terms. Both terms have been written between both of the columns, so now I'm on to my numerical coefficients. So I'm going to look at my variable terms. I only have 1. That means I'm only going to have 1 coefficient. What is the number before the b on my variable term? It is an 8. I only have 1 term with a variable, so I will only have 1 numerical coefficient. In the last column, what variables do I have? AKA what letters are in the problem? We have the letter B. For the last problem, again, terms are separated by adding and subtracting. Don't forget this negative is going to stay with the 5. So I have 1, 2, 3 terms. 3 terms is called a trinomial. Do not forget that. Binomial and a trinomial. So all 3 terms are going to be written between these 2 columns. So I have 3a, a is a variable, so it's going to go in my variable terms. I have 7b, b is also a variable. And then I have 5, but the negative is going to stay with it, so it's -5. It's going to be my constant terms. There is no variables with the -5, it's just a constant. So looking at my 2 variable terms, what are the 2 coefficients that I have? 3 and 7. It's the number before the variable. And what variables do I have? A and B. Alright, part of your assignment is going to be page 131, numbers 28 through 32 even. That is not all of it though. Let's continue on to 3.8. You can go ahead and just turn to page 133. You are to copy table A into your notes. Table A has the keywords and algebraic meaning, so if I said sum, increased by, plus, exceed, or more than, that means I am referring to addition. If I say decreased by, difference, minus, less or less than, or subtract from, that means subtraction. If I say times, product, double, twice, triple, all of those will refer to multiplication. And if I say ratio, quotient, divided by, half, or per, that refers to division. So make sure table A is written into your notes, please. Now we're going to turn to page 134. This is only part of your assignment again. There's more coming at the end. Page 134. Practice 3.8. Let's look at a couple example problems. So now we're going to talk about evaluating expressions. And evaluating expressions, that is when you plug in what they give you for your variables to solve and simplify. So for example, number 1, they tell you that the expression is x plus y. Or in the directions it says evaluate each expression when x is 2 and y is 5. So x is 2, so I'm going to plug in x as 2 plus, and instead of adding y, I know that y is 5. So I'm going to plug in a 5. And what is 2 plus 5? 7. So for every time I see an x, I'm going to plug in a 2. And for every time I see y, I'm going to plug in 5. Let's look at number 3. Number 3, I have 2x plus 3y. The directions for this number have not changed, so x will still be 2, y will still be 5. So every time I see x, I'm going to plug in a 2, and every time I see y, I'm going to plug in a 5. So I have 2 times 2 plus 3 times 5. At this point in time, make sure you use PEMDAS. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 5 is 15. And what is 4 plus 15? 19. So when I have the expression 2x plus 3y, and I know that x is 2 and y is 5, I can plug in and simplify to know that it all equals 19. Let's look at number 5. I have x squared minus y. Take a look at the directions because it has changed for this problem. It is when x is equal to 4 and when y is equal to 7. So again, when I see y, I'm going to plug in 7, and when I see x, I'm going to plug in 4. So now I have 4 squared minus 7. 4 squared is the same thing as 4 times 4. And what is 4 times 4? 16. And 16 minus 7 is 9. So when I plugged in my values for x and y and simplified, it all equaled 9. Number 7, I have x plus 4y. And again, my directions have changed. It is when x is equal to -1 and y is equal to 15. Every time I see x, I'm going to plug in -1. And every time I see y, I'm going to plug in 15. So I have -1 plus 4 times 15. So again, order of operations, PEMDAS. 4 times 15 is 60. And -1 plus 60 is -59. I'm sorry, positive 59. Positive 59. Alrighty, let's look at number 9. For number 9, they say we have x squared plus y minus x times y. And x and y are still the same as the last problem. So y is 15, x is -1. You'll plug in x and y more than one time in this problem. So now I have -1 squared plus 15 minus -1 times 15. Alrighty, so first, there's nothing to simplify inside any of the parentheses. Then comes exponent, so -1 squared is -1 times -1, which is +1. I'm going to write the rest of my problem out beside it. Alright, next comes multiplication and division left to right. So for -1 times 15, I have -15. Then we are going to add and subtract from left to right. So 1 plus 15 is 16. Now I have 16 minus -15. Do not forget that when you subtract a negative, it's the same thing as adding. So 16 plus 15 is 31. Alrighty, I'm going to do one more. Let's look at number 11. Number 11, I have b squared minus a squared. When a equals 0 and b equals 25. I'm just kidding. Looking at the wrong set of instructions. Number 11, a equals 6 and b equals 8. So when I see b, I'm going to plug in 8. When I see 6, I'm going to plug in for a. Alright, so I have 8 squared minus 6 squared. 8 squared is the same thing as 8 times 8, which is 64. And 6 squared is 6 times 6, which is 36. And 64 minus 36 is 28. And then to add on to your assignment from earlier, you will have to do page 134, practice 3.8, numbers 2 through 12. 2 through 14, even. Alright,